Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, let me be the first one to say it. Give Trump the Nobel Peace Prize, because my God, does he deserve it. If any man on this planet deserves it, it is President Donald J. Trump. And so yesterday, it was building for a couple of days. There was a lot of momentum. But finally, there was this historic breakthrough yesterday. They are now dancing in the streets of Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem, in Gaza. Rarely do Palestinians and Israelis agree on anything, but on this, they agree peace is nigh. It is very close. They can smell it. They can sense it. An historic ceasefire deal was agreed to yesterday between Israel and Hamas. And both sides agree, again, they rarely agree on anything, but both sides agree that President Trump, his determination, his vision, his driving ambition to make this happen was the decisive force that decided the breakthrough. So, here is now the breaking news as was unfolding for the last 12 to about 14 hours. Negotiators, Israeli and Hamas, have been meeting in Egypt, right near the Red Sea, and for about the last 72 hours, they have been trying to hammer out the first phase of Trump's 20-point plan to decisively and finally end the war in Gaza. Trump has put forth a very bold, ambitious 20-point plan that both Israel, the Netanyahu government, and Hamas have agreed to, in principle. And now the key first step, which is what they agreed to yesterday, was to implement a ceasefire to stop the fighting. And what has really gotten people very excited, the release of all of the Israeli hostages. There are about 48 hostages that Hamas still have. They believe about 28 of them are dead, but they're still holding the bodies. The family members would like to see the bodies returned to them to give them a proper, decent, respectful burial. But there is believed to be at least about 20 living Israeli hostages that family, parents, friends, frankly, almost the whole nation of Israel has been praying for day and night. According now to the news that came out yesterday, they are expected to be released either this weekend or Trump now says most likely on Monday. But the 20 living hostages will be coming home. The other 28 dead hostages will all be returned, or their remains will be returned. It will take a little bit longer because they have them in different parts of Gaza underneath their tunnels. But Hamas has pledged to get them all back within about 10 days. Now, as for the Palestinians, what do they get out of this? Netanyahu has made a very difficult decision, and it is a massive concession, to release countless Palestinian prisoners, many of them in prison for life sentences for terrorist actions, terrorist murders of innocent Jewish civilians. So Israel had to give a lot to get these hostages back, but the fact of the matter is, the deal has been pretty much inked. They want to formalize it today. Once it is formalized today, President Trump is planning on visiting Israel this weekend at a minimum. He wants to go to Gaza, meet with Palestinian leaders, talk to Palestinian civilians, meet with Israeli leaders, and he also would like to go to Egypt and maybe try to push the process along even quicker to get a comprehensive peace deal done over the next couple of days. It is an historic moment and an historic deal. Listen now to President Trump. He called into Fox News, Sean Hannity, last night to say the hostages are coming home. Roll cut 100 a mic.
The big thing is hostages are going to be released. It's probably, our time would be probably Monday. And, you know, they're a terrible situation. They're deep in the earth, and they're being gotten, and a lot of things are happening right now. As we speak, so much is happening to get the hostages freed, and we think they'll all be coming back on Monday.
They're crying. I'm telling you, you can see scenes. It's actually very moving. They are crying in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem, in towns and cities. People are gathering spontaneously. You would think, I don't know, Israel won the World Cup in soccer or something. They are gathered, people are just pouring out onto the streets. They are dancing. People are literally crying, tears of joy. In Gaza, there are now celebrations as well, because a ceasefire now is at hand, and the possibility now of a final peace deal is at hand. The war now may be finally coming to an end. This long, brutal 2-year war. And so you see them dancing, popping champagne corks. Anyway, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but there's no question now that this is a massive breakthrough. This is an historic ceasefire accord. And this could be now the first decisive step towards an overall permanent peace. Now, let me just say a few things, and then I would love to hear the input from all of you, Kuhner Country. The phone, 617-266-6868. Lines are open if you want to jump now. I want to take as many calls on this issue and as early as I can. What happened is as follows. President Trump put maximum pressure on both Israel and on Hamas to make a deal. And what he did was he got the Arab states, and this is the key countries that were involved. He got Saudi Arabia, he got Qatar, Turkey, and Egypt to tell the Hamas leadership that their days in power are over, that their backing is now over, that they are going to have to now concede to reality, that Hamas has lost the war, that Israel has lost the war. Sorry, that Israel has won the war, and that Hamas has lost the war. Trump made it very clear to Netanyahu that Israel is becoming increasingly isolated on the world stage. It is slowly becoming a pariah due to these very horrifying images that the media has been manipulating, like CNN and the BBC and others, showing starving Palestinian children in the Gaza Strip. And so that it is now in Israel's interest to wind down this war and take the victory that they have achieved and start to rebuild and reconstruct the Gaza Strip. And so what Trump has now laid out is as follows. It is a 20-point plan. At the heart of this plan is that eventually the Palestinians will get a state. They will achieve an independent state, not overnight. This is going to be done over several phases, over several years. But that the West Bank and Gaza will come together for an independent, free Palestinian state with billions of dollars, most of it funded by the Arab Muslim world. This is where the Saudis, Qatar, the Gulf sheiks, Turkey are going to play an instrumental role because they're going to be putting up billions and billions of dollars for the full reconstruction and rebuilding of the Gaza Strip. There will be an interim Palestinian government consisting of sort of technocrats who will oversee this transition slowly towards the rebuilding of Gaza and towards an eventual independent Palestinian state. Above this interim Palestinian government is what's called a board of peace. President Trump will be the chairman of this board of peace, along with, he's going to have another key member sitting with him, former British Prime Minister Tony Blair. And this board of peace is going to oversee this Palestinian interim government. Now, the Arab states will be able to send in peacekeepers, and they will be the military guarantors of an independent Palestine. However, Hamas must be totally dismantled. Hamas must be totally disarmed. They have to hand over all of their weapons. Trump does the impossible, my friends. He has now, it looks, we're going to make it official today, but it now looks like he has delivered a key historic ceasefire deal in Gaza between Israel and Hamas. 6:20 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, so look, the hostages now are going to be released, it appears, by either Sunday or Monday. The Hamas now is going to be getting a lot of Palestinian prisoners in return. Many of them are hardened terrorists with Israeli blood on their hands. That is the price that Israel has to pay to get these hostages home. Now, let me just say a couple points, and then I want to open it up to the phone lines. 617-266-6868 is the number. What is still remarkable, you want to talk about the level of sheer savagery, fanaticism. There's no other word to describe these people. Here is a 20-point peace plan. I just want you to think about this for a second. That is agreed to not just by the United States, obviously, not just by the European Union, not just by Canada or Australia or New Zealand, but by Israel, by the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, by the entire Arab and Muslim world. Qatar, which is basically the biggest financier of Hamas, has agreed to the 20-point peace plan. Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Turkey, Saudi Arabia. I could go on and on and on and on. In other words, the entire world agrees to Trump's 20-point comprehensive peace plan. And Hamas is the only one that still is trying to set more conditions. They're trying to desperately now negotiate and haggle and try to change some of the terms. And in other words, either the whole freaking world is crazy or Hamas is crazy. And I don't think the entire world is crazy. And this is what the deal will achieve. It will give the Palestinians a full, independent Palestinian state, which is, in theory, what Hamas says they want. The West Bank and Gaza will be run, it'll be in a couple of phases. It's not going to happen overnight, but it will be run by Palestinians under a Palestinian flag with full Palestinian independence and Palestinian sovereignty. Now, what else do you want? Now, yes, it will be a demilitarized Palestine, and so the Palestinians say, well, if Israel wants to march back in, well, how can we stop them? Here's how you're going to stop them. Their security is going to be underwritten, guaranteed, so almost like a NATO-like military guarantee by the entire Muslim world. In fact, the Arab countries are going to put in troops. They're going to be sending in troops as part of an international peacekeeping force to protect the borders of this new Palestinian state. So Syria, Jordan, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Qatar, I could go on and on. All of them are going to be, they're going to be signing a deal where they say, if Israel ever walks back into the West Bank or Gaza again, they will be at war with the entire Muslim world or the entire Middle East. So Palestine will have a full military backing and guarantee. They will be getting billions of dollars in reconstruction funds to rebuild Gaza in particular, but also massive investments in the West Bank. Now, if their leaders don't steal it, you could literally have one of the most prosperous countries right there in the heart of the Middle East. So if you're a Palestinian nationalist, if you're one of these idiots on college campuses waving the Palestinian flag and saying that you want freedom for the Palestinians, here it is on a freaking silver platter, delivered to you by Donald J. Trump with the support and agreement of Israel and the entire Middle East, the entire Arab and Muslim world. Plus, thousands of Palestinian terrorists and prisoners are going to be released. Many of them, as I said, hundreds, in fact, with life sentences who have committed terrorist atrocities in the past. Plus, if the leaders of Hamas agree to peaceful coexistence with Israel and decommission their weapons, they will be given a complete amnesty by Israel, meaning Mossad is not going to hunt them down. They're not going to be assassinated. They get to live. They get to live. And they can either live in Gaza or they can leave Gaza and live in any other country, and those countries in the Middle East will have to take them in. The only thing that Hamas must do, because they started this war, they instigated this war, they are the ones responsible for this war, and the horrific, unimaginable, terrible attacks on October 7, is that they must never be allowed to be in power again. They must be politically, utterly dismantled, and they must be completely and utterly disarmed. In other words, Hamas can be no more. And if Hamas agrees to this, and the Arab world now is willing to sign on to an international agreement that these new Palestinian borders will respect the independence and the state of Israel. In other words, what everybody's been talking about for 40, 50 years, a two-state solution. You recognize Israel's current borders. You say that Israel has a right to exist. You are not going to launch any more terrorist attacks to wipe them out. Then you will have your Palestinian state. Okay, my friends, we are now literally on the cusp of history. President Trump announced last night, to the utter jubilation of both Israelis and Palestinians, and frankly across the entire Middle East, that they have now reached an historic ceasefire accord, a ceasefire deal, and that the Hamas has now agreed, well, they've been forced to agree, to release all of the Israeli hostages, all 48 of them. 20 are still believed to be alive. The other 28 are dead, but at least their remains will be sent back to their grieving families so they can be given a proper, respectful burial. Now, just very quickly, because I'm getting a lot of people texting the Kuhner Man, emailing the Kuhner Man, messaging the Kuhner Man. This is from Mark on Messenger. And I think, frankly, Mark makes a very, very good point. And sums up what many of you are saying. Jeff, if Trump wins the Nobel Peace Prize, the liberal moonbat Democrats' heads will literally explode. And then we can all ask the $64,000 question. Has a fascist or Hitler or any existential threat to our country or democracy won a Nobel Peace Prize? We will hear crickets, Jeff. Long live the peace president, Donald J. Trump. Well, now that's literally what he's being called by Israelis, by the Arabs, by the Palestinians, by people all over the world. And it's not just, what is it now, 7 peace agreements that he's brokered between countries around the world. And this one would be the feather in his cap. It was the biggest of all the deals, is this one right here. And I know he's still got Ukraine and Russia left, but this is huge. This ends one of the most brutal wars in the Middle East. And that's been going on now for over 2 years. And look how much it's roiled our country. With the explosion in anti-Semitism, the pro-Hamas riots on college campuses, just how much it's done to undermine our stability in our country. Never mind what it's done in Europe and around the world. So clearly, this is an historic moment. Now, Mark is 1,000% correct. The liberal media doesn't know now how to treat this story. Because they all grudgingly admit, because everybody's saying it. The Arabs are saying it, the Palestinians are saying it, the Israelis are saying it. The decisive driving force behind this deal was President Donald Trump. Without him, this would not have happened. He has put tremendous political capital and put a lot of pressure on a lot of countries to get Hamas to agree, to get Israel to agree. And so he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. There's no question now. Well, that begs the question. The $64,000 question, as Mark said. Well, if he's a dictator, if he's a fascist, if he's a Hitler, if he's an existential threat to democracy, as the media keeps saying, as the Democrats keep saying, as these insurrectionist mayors and governors keep saying, how does he win the Nobel Peace Prize? Like, I'm sorry, did Hitler ever win the Nobel Peace Prize? Did Mussolini ever win the Nobel Peace Prize? Did Vladimir Putin, does he win peace prizes, Nobel Peace Prizes? Their entire narrative. See, I know many of you are saying, well, Jeff, I don't care for the Nobel Peace Prize. It's run by lefties and they give it to fellow lefties, which is all true. But the fact of the matter is the fact that it's given by lefties and by peaceniks and by the globalists. And now they'd have to give it to him. There'd be no question. It's going to be his. And the whole world will have to agree he deserved it. It blows up their entire narrative of Trump as dictator, Trump as Hitler, Trump as fascist. That's why they don't know what to do. They literally don't know what to do. Now, that's number one. Number two, there's a message I got from Dave, our Western PA constitutionalist correspondent out in the Pittsburgh area. And he said, Jeff, look, I'm happy for Trump, obviously. He worked very hard for this. His team worked extremely hard. As Trump said, J.D. Vance was working around the clock. Marco Rubio, Steve Witkoff, even Jared Kushner got involved there at the end. But his envoy and his team, I mean, they were burning the midnight oil to make this thing happen. But as Dave says, I don't trust Hamas. I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. And that's why I have no confidence in the end that they're going to follow through on their promises. Now, I agree with Dave. I don't trust Hamas either. These are a bunch of literally savage, genocidal terrorists. To me, they all deserve to be locked up or executed. However, the problem Hamas now has is they met their match in Netanyahu and they met their match in Trump. Hamas has been thoroughly defeated on the battlefield. And that's, again, thanks to Donald Trump. He backed Netanyahu and Israel all the way. He gave them a full green light. His support was unwavering. And Israel has pounded Hamas. They have smashed Hamas to the point now that Hamas is barely functional. They're hanging by a thread. They've lost over 95% of Gaza. Their own people are now starting to turn on them. And so what Trump did, and this was brilliant statesmanship on his part, this is going to go down in the history books, almost like diplomacy 101. Textbook, how you do it right. He has now painted Hamas into a corner because he's taken their biggest sponsors like Qatar and now told Qatar, pressured Qatar, you tell Hamas it's time to make a deal. So he's cut off all their sources of support. He's got Turkey now leaning on Hamas, Egypt leaning on Hamas, Jordan leaning on Hamas, Syria leaning on Hamas. They got nowhere else to go. He's completely isolated Hamas. And he's got so much leverage and influence with Netanyahu that he can tell Netanyahu, which he has, you got to now take the win. This is a big win. Let's take the win. So here is exactly what's going to happen. If they agree, if they ink the deal, and it looks like they will today, Israeli hostages will be home by either Sunday or Monday. Israel will have to let loose Palestinian prisoners, which frankly I really don't like, but they're going to be released. Israel will then withdraw their forces to an agreed upon line. And then Hamas is going to be faced with the question, do you want to continue to fight in a war that you will definitely lose? And this time, the whole world will be against you. Because the whole world is supporting Trump's 20-point peace plan. Your backers are supporting it. The Arab world is supporting it. The Muslim world is supporting it. The Europeans are supporting it. The Canadians, the Brits, the Australians, obviously the Trump administration. So either you continue to fight, which means then the world is going to clearly see you as the belligerent, as the one that is clearly unreasonable. And Trump will tell Netanyahu, finish him. Finish him. Go into Gaza City, which is their last stronghold, and just finish them, obliterate them. Or Hamas sees reason. And by the way, you have the Palestinian Authority agreeing to this deal. Now you have protests in the Gaza Strip against Hamas saying, sign the damn deal. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go to Frank in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Frank, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Very, very good, Frank. How are you?
Pretty good. My question is, if both sides follow through on the ceasefire, it will be historical, but I'm just wondering how the Democrats and the leftist media are going to try to twist it to make it look like Trump had nothing to do with it or he made it worse. My biggest question is, what are all these pro-Palestinian protesters all over the country going to do now? What is it going to be their reasoning for protesting? And if they stop protesting, are they going to thank Trump for this deal? You know what I mean?
Well, no, Frank, look, I think you really put your finger on it. He's now exposed the protesters for the charlatans, the frauds that they are. Because this is now, even the Palestinians are saying this, that the godfather of a Palestinian state is going to be Donald J. Trump. And not only will he deliver a Palestinian state, he will deliver a Palestinian state with the full support of Israel. Because he is going to ensure that Israel's borders are completely respected and that this will be a demilitarized Palestinian state, so they cannot do any damage to Israel, but with the entire Arab world having to guarantee and uphold or, militarily protect this new Palestinian state. So, in other words, they were always for Hamas. What's going to happen now, Frank, mark my words, if this all plays out the way it should, is that you're going to see that all of these leftists, that have been chanting, from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free, are going to come out against an independent Palestinian state. Because it's going to be a state that's going to have to accept the existence of Israel. So the issue was never self-determination for the Palestinians. It was always about annihilating and massacring and murdering and killing the Jews. They're going to be revealed for the Jew-hating anti-Semites that they are. That's why I'm telling you, this is, if they can go through with it, that's the key now, okay? It's going to be one of the greatest geopolitical masterstrokes in history. Never mind the 21st century. I've never, look, this is on, you can look it up. Go read any history book you want, go through any encyclopedia you want. No man has done what Donald Trump has now done. Okay, barring a disaster at the last possible second. I could name you all the countries. I don't want to name all of them. The entire Arab world, the entire Muslim world, Israel, the entire European Union, Great Britain, Canada, Japan. I'm sorry, I can run down Australia, New Zealand. Everybody now on the same page when it comes to the Middle East. Everybody saying we will defend Israel and we will create an independent Palestinian state. And with billions of dollars to pour in for rebuilding and reconstruction. And everybody now has a stake in upholding this new order in the Middle East. Now, I'm telling you, one of the offshoots right away from this, they're already talking about it, is normalization of relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel. In other words, an expansion of the Abraham Accords. He could literally transform the Middle East and end, what is it now? What 75 years of nonstop war between the Arabs and Israel? So we're looking at peacemaking on an world historical level. We're looking at statesmanship on a world historical level. And where are the Democrats? Nowhere. Where is the media? I can play you the cut where the CNN is now saying, well, he's going to have to get the credit. And the analysts are almost like children. But why? But why? In other words, I don't want him to get the credit. Doggone it. If he gets the credit, what do we do? You see, that's why I want him to get the Nobel Peace Prize. So from that point forward, every time the Democrats say Hitler or fascist or dictator, here's the paper right here with the trophy. Nobel Peace Prize. All I do, I'm the peacemaker. Straight from the Bible. Blessed are the peacemakers. I'm the peacemaker. And sorry, what? I'm Hitler? Are you people that deranged? Are you that stupid? It will destroy their narrative, and they know it. That's why the shocking thing is they are rooting for this deal not to succeed. In other words, they're rooting for Hamas. They're rooting for Hamas, which, if you know anything about Hamas, is the closest thing to the heir of the Nazis and Adolf Hitler. Do they champion the Holocaust? Yep. Do they read Mein Kampf and admire it? Yep. Do they call for the murder and annihilation of the Jews, not just of the middle of Israel, but all over the world and in the Middle East? Yep. Do they want to finish what Hitler started? Yep. That's what they're siding with now. Trump has now outmaneuvered them. He's painted them into a corner. And now, if this peace deal holds and the hostages come home, Frank, I'm telling you, it is going to change the Middle East for the rest of our lives. He will now go down. He's already becoming it, but he will now be known as the peace president. Frank, I don't know what else to tell you. Even Reagan, the man who won us the Cold War, I don't think was called a peace president. He will go down in history as the peace president. It's going to be the final nail in the left and the media's narrative about Donald Trump. Their fake, false, lying narrative. They will never recover from this. Final word to you, Frank. Frank? Yeah, I think we lost Frank. Okay, Frank, thank you very, very much for that call. Excellent call, excellent points. Let me ask all of you, what do you make of Trump's diplomacy? Do you support it? I'm curious, what do you make of the deal, the ceasefire deal? Do you support it? Or do you think Israel is giving too much? I mean, they're going to have to eventually give up several thousand Palestinian prisoners. Several thousand. Many of those were captured after the attack on October 7th, 2 years ago from Gaza. Also, Palestinian terrorists who were convicted life sentences for murdering innocent Jews in Israel. That's going to be a very, very tough pill to swallow. But Netanyahu and his government are saying they're willing to pay that price to bring these hostages home. And ultimately, do you think Hamas will eventually concede defeat, be disbanded, be decommissioned, and give up their weapons? Or do you think Hamas will continue to fight to the bitter, bitter end? Daryl in Medfield. Thanks for holding, Daryl, and welcome.
Jeff, how are you today?
Very good. How are you, Daryl?
Okay, question. The West Bank. How many Jews are in the West Bank, Jeff?
There are some, but not many.
Well, I heard just the opposite. I heard there's like over 500,000. At least that's what I read, maybe legally or illegally. What's their reaction going to be, Jeff? As you said, the Palestinians, they want to annihilate the Jews. What do you think their reaction is going to be? Again, I think it's over 500,000 Jews are in the West Bank, okay? Maybe you can research that, but that might be a monkey wrench in all this.
Well, they're going to have to eventually go back to Israel. I mean, if there is a Palestinian state, they're going to go back to Israel. That's going to be a major tough concession that Israel is going to have to make. But look, for the price of peace, real peace, durable peace, lasting peace, an end to this, Netanyahu has offered this many times before. What's changed now is that the Palestinians have been so defeated and Hamas has so ruined this war. And Gaza is in rubble. And the Palestinians now, usually it's when you're thoroughly defeat an enemy that you can finally impose the conditions that you want. So Israel has always been willing to give the Palestinians their own independent state. That's one of the biggest lies the left has been spewing now for 25 years. The problem is the Palestinians don't want to recognize the existence of Israel. So it's never been about giving Palestine its own independence. It's about, will they accept the existence of Israel? And now they see that it's hopeless. They cannot win a war against Israel. And so those Jewish settlements will have to be dismantled, and they will have to eventually come back to Israel. They did it in Gaza. They'll do it in the West Bank. See, and you're going to have a demilitarized Palestinian state, so they can never threaten Israel again. And now you're going to have the entire Middle East having to guarantee the security of the Palestinian state. And what they're going to do is it's going to be this. They're going to have a few peacekeepers, but this is it. It's going to be like an Article 5 from NATO. If you attack an inch of Palestinian territory, it will invoke security military response from the other Arab states. So the Palestinians are going to be told, you don't need a military. None. You just need a police force. Why? Because if anybody attacks you, you've got 20 Arab states that will rush to your defense. So you don't need to buy rockets. You don't need to buy missiles. You don't need to buy tanks. You don't need to shell Israel anymore. So if you truly want an independent state, you will have an independent state. So now the ball is clearly in the Palestinians' court. Now, Mahmoud Abbas, the leader of the Palestinian Authority, said, I'm going to sign this deal. It appears on the streets in Gaza, most Palestinians say, we want to sign the deal. Trump has even sweetened it even more. Trump has said, look, if you guys want to leave, you can leave and then come back in a couple of years as we rebuild the Gaza Strip. Or you can stay in Gaza as we rebuild Gaza. So I don't know how much more Trump can do for literally, I don't know how much more he can do for them. And so the question now is, do the Palestinians truly want self-determination? Do they truly want what they say is freedom and independence? Because now it's there. It's there. It'll take a few years. It's going to be in phases. Trust but verify. But it's there. All you have to do is accept the existence of Israel in its current borders. Peaceful coexistence. That's it. Daryl, now, after this, if they turn this down, I never want to hear another person talk to me about Israel or the occupation or the West Bank or Gaza or Palestinian rights look, I'll tell you this, they're getting a much better deal than the Irish got under the British when the Irish got their free state. So this is a better deal than what Ireland got. It's a better deal than what India got. It's a better deal than most countries who become independent have gotten. If this is not good enough for them, then I'm sorry, they don't want peace. Period. The issue has been resolved forever. You've got independence, full military backing from the entire Middle East to secure your borders and to secure your country, billions of dollars in reconstruction money, and you've got the path to becoming an advanced, prosperous Middle East country. And right there on the Mediterranean, you could build hotels, you could build cafes, beaches, you could be like the French Riviera of the Middle East. Trump is giving to, and he's the chair of the board. And he says, I'll bring you all the investment you want. How many hotels? How many casinos? How many restaurants? How many cafes? Seriously, how much can you handle down there? Now, if you're not taking this, then you're a medieval savage. And now we're going to find out. Now, this is where the rubber meets the road. Daryl, final word to you.
So much potential there, Jeff, for either disaster or total paradise. So you're right. It's an incredible, complicated situation. All I can say is, on to Ukraine and Russia. If he solves that problem, man, I'll kiss his feet. Okay, he's done a great job. Let's keep our fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. I'm with you, Daryl. Thank you very, very much for that call. No, look, he's done. This is what they're saying. The leader of Egypt, Turkey, Erdogan, who's no friend of the United States, the leaders of Qatar, the leaders of Jordan, the leaders of Syria. I could go on. Netanyahu, the entire Israeli political establishment, labor, left, center, right, the Israeli media, Mahmoud Abbas, Palestinians on the streets. This is what they're saying about Trump. He's done the impossible. We never thought somebody could do this because he didn't the thing is, it's like a Gordian knot. It's so complicated and it's wrapped up in so many different issues. Here's what he did. He got everybody involved. That's the problem with the Middle East. You get some people involved, well, then other people object. You see, so what he did was he got, no. Qatar's going to be in on this. No. The Egyptians are going to be on this. No. Jordan shares a border on the West Bank. No. They got to be in on this. Oh, no, I need Lebanon and Syria. No. They got to have a stake in this. So he's getting everybody involved. Everybody. No, I need the Europeans to sign off on this. I don't want them at the last minute to undercut us. They got to say they're behind all of this and that they agree with it. So what he did was he got, and of course Israel, he got everybody now to play a specific role and to have a stake in this post-war Gaza and this post-war Middle East. So, well, and again, everybody said he's like a force of nature. He doesn't stop. He works around the clock. He's pushing Vance. He's pushing Rubio. He's pushing his envoys. He's calling up all these different countries. Look, the president of Egypt, this is where the talks are being held in Egypt. The leader of Egypt says, when we get this deal signed, we want Trump to visit Egypt because he will now be seen as the peacemaker president. In other words, Egypt, which culturally has a lot of prestige in that part of the world, say we want to join with the president to put our full prestige, our full weight behind this new ceasefire deal. So what I'm saying is the Arabs are applauding Trump. So what's now happening is he's not just seen as Israel's man. He's now developed enough relationships and alliances that now the Arab world is saying he's our guy too. In other words, and this is, you see, a businessman, for a deal to last, for a deal to be successful and durable, what's the key? Both parties have to be happy. That's why Trump always says, I never want to screw you in a negotiation. Because if I screw you, you're out in 2 or 3 years. I just want a good, fair deal. I make money, you make money. You're happy, I'm happy. If everybody's happy, then we have ourselves a deal and a relationship that can last for a long time. And that's the principle that he applied to this. He goes, if Israel gets everything that it wants, then the Arabs are going to be fuming. It's not going to last. If the Arabs push for everything that they want, and Israel basically gets the shaft, well, it's not going to last. So this has got to be something where everybody says, I like it. I can live with this. It's good. That's the 20-point plan. And so far, we'll see. Phase 1 will be signed, I'm hearing now, in the next couple of hours. If it's formally inked, the hostages are coming home. Matt in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Matt, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing? Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Welcome, Matt. Welcome.
Oh, I'm so glad I finally got through. Listen, I love listening to you every day, but all this talk about Israel is starting to kill me, pal. I mean, they are not the only nation in the world that we can talk about. Everyone has problems, but, I mean, why are we so focused on them? They are destroying every country that they face. There's been, one missile that got through? I mean, they flattened up Gaza. They literally run the world, but we're worrying about them. Why?
Well, I mean, Matt, if this thing goes through, then Gaza is going to be rebuilt. It will no longer be flat. There will no longer be rubble. And this will end one of the biggest conflicts in the Middle East. I've been living with this for 56 years, my entire life. I mean, I don't talk about Israel every day. I mean, I haven't talked about Israel in weeks. But this is a major historic accord that is about to be signed. Literally, it's the biggest story in the world. And, peace in the Middle East, no one thought it was possible. And, you're saying it's all about Israel. No, it's about the Palestinians as well. They're going to get an independent state, and this war is going to come to an end. And no more Palestinians are going to die. I mean, Matt, I have to ask you, aren't you happy about that? That there won't be people dying anymore, especially Palestinians?
Peace in the world, believe me, I love it. But, we're talking about people that had 1,000 people taken, and we've been talking about this forever, and they started a giant war. You know, a couple months ago, 150,000 Armenian people got starved by the Azerbaijani people who are backed by the Jewish people. See, the Jewish people will back the Muslims if it helps kill the Christians. We didn't talk about it at all. People were starving. Kids, children, everybody, women. They're eating grass. They got kicked off.
Well, I mean, Matt, you've heard me talk about Armenia many times on this show. And I've talked about what's happening in Nagorno-Karabakh. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, very quickly. Listen now to President Trump. This is a video that he issued, I believe, 2 days ago. He knew by then that they were very close to reaching this historic ceasefire. Listen now. This is the kind of round-the-clock diplomacy he and his team were engaged in to get this deal finally done. Listen to the countries that he names, saying without them, we couldn't have done it. Roll cut 32, Mike.
I want to thank the countries that helped me put this together. Qatar, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, and so many others. So many people fought so hard. This is a big day. We'll see how it all turns out. We have to get the final word down in concrete. Very importantly, I look forward to having the hostages come home to their parents and having some of the hostages, unfortunately, you know the condition they're in, come home likewise to their parents because their parents wanted them just as much as though that young man or young woman were alive.
Well, they're very close now. The hostages are expected to be released within the next couple days, and they should be reunited with their families either Sunday or Monday at the latest. It is an historic achievement. Listen now to This is CNN. Abby Phillips has this analyst, Alicia Johnson, on. And, you know, even Abby Phillips, who's a diehard Trump hater, says if he could get a ceasefire, which pretty much now Trump has done, if he can end this thing, the fighting, the bloodshed, the slaughter between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, you can't deny it. It's going to be a massive, major victory for Trump. You just can't deny it. Now, listen to Alicia Johnson. Literally, she says, it pains me to have to hear that he's going to get credit for this. Like, no, this can't be true. Roll cut 33, a Mike.
If President Trump is able to do this, it's a major victory for him.
Look, it is challenging to actually hear that piece of, Trump potentially being the one to get the ceasefire deal. But I think what we are seeing now is that a lot of people are tired of the devastation that's happening to the Palestinian people. And so how do we figure out a path forward? And so I would be interested to understand President Trump's interest in this because he has said some things that are very harmful to the Palestinian people. I don't know, what his motivations are.
He wants the war to end. He wants the war.
That's what he wants.
I don't think he wants the war to end for a lot of reasons.
Now, that was Scott Jennings who said, he wants the hostages to come back. But they're like, you hate him so much, like ding, 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 like you don't get it. Like, seriously, hello? He wants the war to end. How much clearer does the guy have to be? And it's like, literally, it pains me. Don't say that he's going to get credit. Don't say it. Come on now. No, he can't get the credit. Why would he get the credit? Why should he get the... why does he care? Why would he care about this? You can see their mind, literally, is melting down. Because Hitler cannot be a peacemaker. Dictator cannot be a peacemaker. And now, he's the world's greatest peacemaker. Brooks in North Carolina. Thanks for holding, Brooks, and welcome.
Jeff, good morning.
Hi, Brooks.
I'll never forget the day you got Trump on, and every word you said behind that microphone, Jeff, got him on WRKO, and I don't know what happened on the back end with Sandy and Mike, but the trio of you must have worked like a bulldozer to do it. And, you know, the thing about Kuhner country is we're all kind of connected to Trump because of your program. And it is such a powerful time to be alive right now. I mean, if people don't feel it, they're asleep. This is fascinating what's going on. And when Marco Rubio came into that cabinet meeting yesterday, handed off Trump the note that, look, this is going down. We are one toothpick away from making this deal brick and mortar. You know, it was just riveting to see that, you know, and even the cabinet meeting itself was what I call Trump theater, and how he was able to bring in all the YouTubers, you know, kind of, I don't want to say low level, but they don't have the notoriety that the press.
No, you're completely right. Brooks, please hang on. I'm up against the break. I want to come back to you. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to go back to Brooks in North Carolina. But again, big breaking news. This broke overnight. President Trump has done it. He has now gotten Hamas and Israel to agree to an historic ceasefire. The Israeli hostages, all 48 of them, 20 are still believed to be alive. 28 are dead, but their remains will be returned. The current living Israeli hostages will be coming home, they now believe, on Monday. There's going to be a big prisoner swap, so Hamas is not doing this out of the goodness of their heart. There will be hundreds and hundreds of Palestinian terrorists, Hamas terrorists, that will be released in exchange. But for Israel, the images now are everywhere. People are dancing on the streets, literally, drinking champagne, popping champagne corks. It's like a national festival. I mean, it's the festivities. They're going to be partying, I think, till Monday when the hostages come home. There are also massive celebrations in Gaza. Ironically, they're also popping champagne corks. They're also dancing on the streets because now they believe this is the end of the war between Hamas and Israel, and that now there will be finally not just a path to peace, but eventually a path to an independent Palestinian state. So we are literally watching history in the making. Brooks, I thought, made a really good point. You can feel the drama. You can feel the excitement, the adrenaline. Yesterday, during Trump's cabinet meeting, Rubio walked up to him, whispered something in his ear. You could see Trump's face lit up. He was then handed a piece of paper, and on that piece of paper saying, we're basically there to signing this historic agreement. We need you to okay a Truth Social post because we want you to be the first one to announce it. And Trump couldn't contain himself, and he said, listen, I've got phenomenal news. I think we now have achieved an historic peace. So, again, details still need to be ironed out. The Israeli government has to vote on this deal. It appears that Netanyahu obviously has the votes, and they still have to formally ink it, which will be done later today, just in a couple of hours. But Hamas has now held a press conference saying they are going to sign the deal and that the Israeli hostages will be coming home in the next couple of days. 617-266-6868. Let's go right back to Brooks in North Carolina. Brooks, you were talking about how hard we had to work to get Trump on the show. You're right. You're talking about how hard Trump is working around the clock to secure peace for Israel, for the Middle East, and in many ways for the world. If he pulls this off, holy mackerel. And if he can end the war between Russia and Ukraine, I mean, really, Brooks. I mean, I don't know they'll have to make him president of the world. You know, I mean, I think his next gig will be General Secretary at the United Nations. No, I mean, really. I mean, it's just... So, anyway, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but look, just to see those happy faces, to see so many people after this brutal, long 2-year war, finally having something to cheer about, celebrate, drink a little bit, the dancing on the streets, the hugs everywhere, the tears of joy. These are incredible images. Brooks, please pick up where you left off.
Every time that Trump brings together a cabinet meeting, it's historic. There's just something very special that he does. He brings outside people in to be part of this. The way he brought in independent journalists and YouTubers to kind of face off with the press was it was just the best Trump theater that I've seen, and minus the time that he brought in the Bill Clinton rape victims during his campaign. That was fun. But you know, again, it just shows us the specialty, the uniqueness of Trump that we can't take for granted, because we'll never get him back. He's irreplaceable, and you know, this is starting to garner support for the Nobel Peace Prize. I don't know, Jeff. What do you think? Is this in the cards? Do you think he's going to be able to pull off a Nobel?
Well, this is now what's happening. Again, this is incredible. I mean, I don't want to say miracle, because people are going to say they're going to accuse me of, Trump worship. But you tell me if this is not as close to a political miracle as can possibly happen. The Israelis have now nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize. The Palestinians now have said, I'm not talking Hamas, but Palestinians on the streets, the Palestinian Authority, have now said they want to nominate him for the Peace Prize. The Saudis, the Jordanians, the Turks, the Egyptians, the Syrians, I could go on, the Qataris, the Gulf states, they say they want to nominate him for the Peace Prize. The leftist Europeans who were fighting with him just a couple months ago, the European Union has said they want to nominate him now for the Peace Prize. So what I'm saying is, when you have that many countries, which is almost unheard of, and that many groups around the world who formally, just yesterday were slaughtering each other. I mean, literally, like killing each other in one of the most vicious wars. Whatever you thought of the war in Gaza, and I supported Israel all the way, it was a nasty, brutal, vicious war. I mean, it was a fight to the finish between two sides that despise each other. And they both agree that Trump should get the Nobel Peace Prize? In other words, you put them at a table in front of each other, they can't agree on anything. Probably within 10 minutes, they'd be like, grabbing each other by the throat. But the one thing, you go, Donald Trump, oh yeah, like everyone, yeah, pumping their fist, yeah. So this is what he's done. Now, I'm telling you, Brooks, the media is shell-shocked. That's the only word. They're shell-shocked because they underestimated Trump again. Like, how many times do you have to underestimate this guy? They didn't think he could beat Hillary. He did it. They didn't think he could survive the Russia hoax. He did. They didn't think he could survive not one but two impeachments. He did. They didn't think after they stole the election that he would ever be able to come back again. He did. He rode back to power against all odds. I mean, he keeps overcoming them again and again and again and again. And so you would think after a while, like, maybe we should take this guy for what he is. He's a force of nature. He's a world historical figure. Now there's no question now. There's no debating this now. And he's turning into one of the greatest, if not greatest president we've ever had. They said he couldn't secure the border. He did it. I mean, look, we take this for granted. Again, like 5 months in a row now, not a single illegal alien, not one, has come into our country. Not one. That's unheard of. That's never happened. It's never happened. Because that's how much he's reinforced the border. And now, and I get to this later because I really want to get to it, he's starting to smash these insurrectionist mayors and governors. He's now calling for Pritzker to go to jail. He's calling for Brandon Johnson to go to jail. Like, that's like, who does this? Nobody does this. Antifa now, and that's what you're talking about. That was one of the most incredible meetings I have ever seen with a president of the United States, with Stephen Miller right beside him, his deputy chief of staff, Pam Bondi, the attorney general. You had Kristi Noem, the secretary of Homeland Security, and they're sitting and listening to these, as you put it, YouTubers, social media influencers, independent journalists, and in such an articulate, powerful, clear, courageous fashion. And the president is just listening and he's taking notes. And some of them, and I'm not saying this to belittle them, you have to see it, to their credit. I mean, it made me so proud. And I'm saying to them, boy, their parents must be really proud of them. Some of them are like 25, 27, 28, 29 years old. They're very young. They look young, very patriotic, very intelligent, extremely well-spoken. And they're describing their experiences with Antifa. Literally saying, no, I've been, like this girl, there was one girl, her name was Hernandez. Last name, I think it was Sarah. Don't quote me on her first name, but her last name was Hernandez. And she's like, I've been beaten. I've been mugged. I've been assaulted by Antifa just for covering their events. And the Portland police pump their fists and cheer them on as I'm being beaten up. Mr. President, this has to stop. And then she looks right at Pam Bondi and says, Madam Attorney General, you have to start putting Antifa into prison. You have to start arresting them and putting them in jail. And it's like truth to power. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, my friends, I want to continue to take your calls. And then at about 8 o'clock, you got to hear what was said at this major meeting between President Trump, Attorney General Pam Bondi, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller was there as well, many top people in the administration, and these young journalists, YouTubers, social media influencers, and their horrific stories about what they've encountered at Antifa rallies, protests, how they've been beaten, how they've been attacked, the reaction by the Portland police in particular, supporting Antifa, cheering them on, and how the media was covering this. So that's what I mean when I say truth to power. It wasn't just that they were telling Pam Bondi, you need to start making arrests. It was the sincerity, and they were extremely well spoken. I mean, this Hernandez woman, I say girl or kid affectionately, maybe 25, 26, from Turning Point USA. I mean, I'm like, boy, this woman is smart, articulate, really a really good reporter. And she was just like, and the media in this room were there. And they refused to air what happened to me and what happened to other journalists because they're covering up for Antifa's crimes. And like, we're asking you, please, you have to restore the rule of law. You can't allow these terrorists to continue to run wild. They're putting our lives at risk. They're putting federal agents' lives at risk. And they're putting the citizens of Portland or Chicago or Boston, obviously, at risk. Like, this has got to end. But I want to take a few more calls because this is such an historic peace deal. And I promise I'll be taking calls on this the whole show if you want to talk about it. Let me just make two other very, very quick points. It's very obvious. Here is what fundamentally changed everything. What fundamentally changed everything was the 12-day war. was with Israel, with the full backing of the United States, and then eventually Trump moved in for the kill shot, is when they broke the back of the Iranian nuclear program. And by extension, they broke the back of the Iranian regime. That Hamas lost its biggest backer, its biggest sponsor. Now it's basically like a toothless snake. It may hiss. It may want to kill you. It has the instincts to kill you. It would love nothing more than to continue to bite you and kill you, but it's been effectively now defanged. That's what the war did. In other words, Israel didn't just beat Hamas on the battlefield. Israel, and most importantly, Trump, beat Iran, who are the biggest backers of Hamas, and decisively broke them. And so I think that's what's laid the conditions now for Hamas even going to the table and making all of these concessions that they clearly don't want to make and would probably never make. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning all this, because it's all tied together, is a lot of people are now saying, well, where do we go from here? Well, I think it's pretty obvious. If Hamas sticks to its word, and this is a big if, then what you're seeing now is essentially the death of Hamas. Hamas will be wiped off the face of the earth. I mean, their leaders may still have amnesty. They're promising them an amnesty if they agree to drop their weapons and disband. But as a political, religious force, they are now spent and finished. With them out of the way, and Iran now too weak to hinder the rest of the Arab world, Israel, and the United States, we may actually have an independent Palestinian state living side by side with a strong, sovereign, independent Israel. And this means the dawn of a new age in the Middle East. Literally historic. The word is overused, not now. And I just want to read a couple of things, and then a couple of posts, a text, and then I want to go right to the phone lines. 617-266-6868 is the number. This is from Vince in Florida, who texted me. Jeff, so do all the Free Palestine people now have to give Trump credit? Yes. They're not going to want to do it. They're going to choke on it if they have to do it, if it has to come out of their mouth or their lips. But yes, literally now you can turn to them and say the godfather of an independent Palestinian state is Donald J. Trump. So why the hell are you guys beating police officers and torching cruisers, police cars, on the streets of Boston, denouncing Donald Trump when he's the guy that delivered, you're waving the Palestinian flag, he delivered a state for that Palestinian flag. Now again, there's got to be a couple of phases. It's not going to happen overnight. But all they got to do now is follow the timeline laid out in the 20-point plan. You want an independent state? Trump is giving you an independent state. Under one condition, actually two conditions. Hamas cannot play any role in the future governance of the Palestinians. Lay down their weapons, no political role whatsoever. Period, full stop. And two, stop calling for the destruction and annihilation of the Jews and the state of Israel. In other words, end your genocidal politics. Now, if you're willing to let the Jews live and leave them alone, you've got your state. And you've got it fully backed by the entire Muslim world, the entire Arab world, the entire Middle East, and the United States of America, with Trump as the chair of the board, overseeing the government. So we're talking about billions of dollars in investment flowing to the Palestinians, with Israel's full agreement. And that's the right wing in Israel. Forget the left wing. The right wing says, yeah, we can live with this. You protect our independence, our sovereignty. You can assure our peace and security. We'll sign off on this. It's game, set, and match. It's over. It's over. Trump, it's called checkmate. Trump has checkmated all of his critics. And the media now, they don't know what to do. And the final nail in their coffin is when he wins the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, literally, it's a one-line response from now till the end of his presidency. Dictator, Nobel Peace Prize. Fascist! Hitler! White supremacist! He wants a civil war! Nobel Peace Prize. Nobel Prize. Yeah, Hitler never got a Nobel Peace Prize. Sorry, guys, you got to go on. Something else. You need a new narrative. You got to find another new line of bull. I can't say it. New line of bull crap. New line of Bravo Sierra. Find another one, guys. This dog don't hunt anymore. Okay, I do want to read one text, and then I want to go to the phone lines. This is from 603. Jeff, this morning, I will be the rain on this parade. So let me get this straight. A peace accord is going to be signed with a snake, i.e. Hamas, agreeing that the snake won't bite. Forgive me, Jeff, if I don't hold my breath. If and when in the future this snake does bite again, because the Palestinians have shown they can never live in peace with Israel, let me quote our beloved President Trump. Quote, I remember this. I saved you, cried the woman. You've bitten me, but why? You know your bite is poisonous, and now I'm going to die. Oh, shut up, silly woman, said the snake with a grin. You knew damn well I was a snake when you took me in. Remember Trump read that parable? And it's a very powerful parable. And so the texter continues, Jeff, be careful who you trust. Even snakes can hiss sweetly. Listen, 603, I'm under no illusions about Hamas, who they are, what they are. I think the counter argument from Trump and his security team would be, but we've defanged the snake. The snake is not doing this because the snake wants to do this out of the goodness of the snake's heart. It's the snake has no more poison left. We've taken out all the poison. And now the snake realizes if I don't sign, and this is how Trump was so brilliant, by having the whole world, literally the whole world, including the Palestinian leadership in the West Bank, including all the Arab states, all the Middle East states, most of the Muslim world, never mind the EU and everybody else, Hamas literally stands alone. And so if they turn down the deal, then the world has no more moral grounds to oppose Netanyahu when Trump says, finish him off. In other words, kill the snake. Just chop its head off. Go, kill it. You got my full blessing, and the world cannot criticize you. Because they know that you wanted peace, the world wants peace, and only one party said no, and that was Hamas. So Hamas is now basically saying, either we sign and we live, or we don't sign and we die. And that's the only reason why they're even talking to the Israelis. Now, who knows? You're dealing with Hamas. You're dealing with religious fanatics. You're dealing with Islamists. You're dealing with people with a 7th century medieval, barbaric, primitive mentality. So they're not rational people you're dealing with. So anything can happen. But from Trump's point of view, this is a masterclass in diplomacy, in statesmanship, and in leadership. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. This is truly, what he played now is truly three-dimensional chess. Tim in South Dennis. Thanks for holding, Tim, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff, my friend.
How are you, Tim?
Oh, I'm outstanding this morning. The only thing I would say about all this, the ones to really keep an eye on, is the American left, which means all these people running around waving their Palestinian flags, burning cop cars, hunting down, harassing, beating Jewish students, yelling from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. If that all doesn't come to a grinding halt like right now, that'll show you that they were never interested in peace. They were never interested in a free Palestinian state, that they're really what they keep accusing us of being Nazis. They just want to get rid of the Jews. If they keep going out and doing this stuff, even after, this historic peace deal, which, think back when Clinton was in office. He had that Yasser Arafat to the White House, I think 17 times. He couldn't get peace. In fact, all he got out of that was another fatwa against us. But if these idiots stay on the street and doing what they've been doing, that's just going to show you who the real Nazis are, because that's what they did. Go after the Jews. We don't do that. What do you think, Jeff?
Oh, Tim, I think you laid it out brilliantly. Look, you and I know, and 99.99% of this audience knows, that these left-wing activists are at their core Jew-hating anti-Semites. They don't care about the Palestinians. They're just using the Palestinian issue to justify in their minds their hatred for the Jews and their persecution and attacks on Jews and on America and on police and on authority. So that's really what it's about. They don't really care about the Palestinians. And that's why this deal exposes and unmasks them. Because when the Palestinians agree to this deal, and they end up getting their own independent state, and Trump will be the one who midwifed this independent state, and I believe they're still going to continue to have hatred for Israel, and they're still going to persecute and target Jews. And of course, go after police and go after ICE and you're going to turn around and say, these are left-wing nihilists. These are anarchists. These are Marxist, communist, Jew-hating anti-Semites who, by the way, hate Christians, with as much ferocity as they hate Jews. So let's not delude ourselves. No ideology killed Christians more than communism. Even Islam, bad as it is, its record against Christians and Jews, no one killed more Christians than communists. It's not even close. So they're coming after Christians. We're just a much bigger group, a much bigger block. So it's harder. It takes a lot more time. The Jews are smaller, so it's easier for them to target the Jews. But no, Tim, you're completely right. And they're going to be isolated now as well, because now they'll have lost their cover, any kind of legal, sort of political fig leaf that they've been using. Now they will be exposed, like Hitler's brown shirts, for the Jew haters and anti-Semites that they are. And I think it's going to discredit them even more. And I think Antifa now is going to be hunted. Antifa now is going to be turned into a domestic Al-Qaeda. And they're going to be treated like a domestic Al-Qaeda. And I think it's time that we start designating more of these far-left groups as domestic terrorists. In other words, this is only going to weaken them even more because they made a big mistake. They struck too early. Hamas made a big mistake. They underestimated Israel. They struck too early. They thought we hit on October 7, 2023. They would have Lebanon, Hezbollah would back them in Lebanon, that they would have Iran throw their full support behind them, that, in other words, they would suck Israel into a larger war that the Israelis would lose. And they underestimated Israel, and above all, they underestimated Trump. And Tim, I need to mention this because I think this is the parallel between what's happening now domestically and what just happened in the Middle East. The Iranians in public, you can look this up, were asked What happened? Like, how did you lose the 12-day war so decisively? Like, what happened? Because, no, Iran has a very big military, a large navy. They have terrorist cells all over the Middle East. And so people thought, whoa, you attack Iran and especially annihilate and target their nuclear facility. It would unleash, the mother of all responses. And the mullahs and their leaders admitted, they said, we did not anticipate, this is what they said, the daring, the military tactical daring of Netanyahu and Trump. Meaning, we never thought that they would have the nerve, the guts, the courage, the daring, as they put it, that they would strike Tehran, that they would strike Natanz, that they would strike the heart and soul of our nuclear facilities in a lightning strike, knowing that this could lead to a massive military retaliation. So we thought, no, they'd be crazy to do that. And we were caught off guard. Let me tell you what Trump is doing now. And this audience, I'm telling you, is the tip of the spear. Because we've been pushing Trump and pushing his administration to go after these groups. Trump yesterday said, I'm going after Antifa. I've ordered Pam Bondi. We're going to level Antifa. Brandon Johnson should be arrested. Pritzker should be arrested. They're underestimating Trump's daring. They think it's all blah, blah, blah. It's all talk. But they're going to find out, like the Iranians, that Trump is not a man to trifle with. When he says he's going to do something, he does it. He's going to start rounding up Antifa. He's going to dismantle them. He's going to arrest them. He's going to smash them. And I'm telling you, I think you're going to start to see some of these insurrectionist mayors and governors. Again, they won't see it coming like the mullahs. They're going to say, come on, it's just bluster. Come on, he's just blowing smoke. He's playing to the MAGA crowd. You watch. You watch. Trump is going to say, again, it's chess. Don't go too early for the king. Set all your pieces up in place. And then you move for the checkmate. Trump is going to go for the checkmate. I think he's going to start putting some of these people like Golden Corral and that whack job that's running Chicago. And I think the Portland mayor as well. After that riveting testimony, how the mayor has so polluted and corrupted that police department in Portland, where when Antifa is beating 24, 25-year-old female journalists to a pulp, and the cops are watching and pumping their fists in the air like, yeah? You could see on Trump's face, they're going down. Like that bull, I got to be careful. That bull crap, that doesn't fly with me. And it was effective. Because if you look at Pam Bondi, she's like shrinking in the chair. And you could see the wrinkles almost instantaneously coming on her face. Like, oh no, I have to do it. Like you can see the pressure on, and she knows because she was sitting to the right of Trump. So she's like, no, to the left of Trump. Forgive me. Trump was to the right. Like, oh no, because the guy to the right of me is going to tell me I have to do it. And if he tells me I have to do it, I'm going to do it. So it's coming. Tim, it's coming. The way we broke Hamas is the way we're going to break Antifa. We are living through historic times. Tim, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. In fact, that leads me to our poll question. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, getting a lot of emails from Moonbats. A lot of liberals weighing in. They are, I swear, you'd think they would be happy that there's a peace deal. Sorry, either you laugh or you cry. And all I'm getting is, I'm serious, F you. That's all I'm getting. You mother effer, F you. It's just he's broken them. Trump has just broken them. Now they're just swearing. You got to see this. I mean, they can't believe it. They're shocked. They're shell shocked. They know that if this thing holds, he's getting the Nobel Peace Prize. And when he gets the Nobel Peace Prize, what do they say then? 617-266-6868. Mel in Saratoga. Thanks for holding, Mel, and welcome.
Yes, good morning, Jeff. How are you today? And Mike and Sandy, hopefully everybody's well.
Any day that I see this many liberal heads exploding, Mel, is a great day. When I get emails from libs, literally, I can't say it, the F-bomb, with like 20 exclamation points. I'm like, boy, we got him, Mel. We got him. Anyway, please, I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead, Mel.
Oh, yeah, the young lady that you were talking about. I guess you said she had turned toward who was Kristi Noem or Pam Bondi.
It was Pam Bondi. Yeah, she turned to Pam Bondi.
Or Savannah Hernandez. She got her start with...
Yes, Savannah Hernandez. That's her name.
With InfoWars and Alex Jones. She'll even say so. She gives Alex Jones a lot of credit for what he gave her a start in the media business. But what I want to also say, which I had mentioned to Mike earlier, was that anybody who pays, or you take these communities like Portland and Chicago, or any community around the country, you pay a federal income tax. You have to, if you earn a living, you have to pay your federal income tax through your W-2s. And if you own a business and you run a business, you have to declare what you've made for your portion of your federal income tax. And that makes me to believe that these mayors and governors, they're totally out of line. They have no right to do that, and the federal government should have the right to come in and protect me. I don't care if I'm just one person out of a million, because if I'm paying federal income tax, they have a right to come. They have an obligation to have to come and protect my well-being through through what I pay. I mean, we all have to pay it. So I feel as though that issue has never been spoken about by the administration, by President Trump, or any of anyone of his cabinets. That I feel as though that's an obligation. I pay, so what am I paying for? To be abused, to be shot at, to be run down, to be beaten up, and have my the neighborhoods and where I live unsafe? No, they have an obligation to come and protect we the people.
Mel, I got to say, I never quite looked at it at that particular angle that you're looking at it, but I love your take. I think you're completely right. Look, if you're a taxpayer, and you are, and those journalists, they all work, they all pay taxes. I would pay taxes. Most of this audience obviously pays taxes. Even if you're on Social Security, well, now no, because of Trump. But before, you were paying taxes on your Social Security. So you have a right to go anywhere and expect that the government will protect you and provide you with security and safety on the public streets. And so Antifa does not have the right, forget that it's illegal, but just from a moral point of view. So I'm paying taxes, say I'm living in Portland. I'm paying taxes, and Antifa has the right to just whack me over the head and split my skull open, or smash me in the face, as they've done to several female journalists. You can see the pictures. Their eyes are, black eyes. Their nose is all smashed in. They missing teeth because they got their teeth kicked in. And the police, and they're clearly operating under orders, are literally watching this, standing by, and they're not just doing nothing. They're pumping their fists. They're like, yeah, go ahead. Like, yeah. No. Mel, heads have to roll. Heads have to roll. The mayor should be arrested. I'm telling you right now. The police chief should be arrested. And those police officers who are complicit in this should be fired on the spot. And I mean, no pension. I mean, nothing. No benefits whatsoever. This is such a fundamental betrayal of what it is to be a law enforcement officer. And this is what I'm saying. This is what's happening. And look, and this is all caught on camera. That's the other thing. So what was so brilliant about the meeting is they said, they told their stories, which were very powerful, riveting stories. But then they said, look, here's the tape. The media is not showing it because they were there and they were shaming the media, but they go, we were there. Here, look, take the tape. Here, we're giving it to you. Here, take it. Look at the tape. You can see the police. You can see their badges. You can see their badge numbers. You can see who was there, who was getting beaten, who was provoking, who wasn't provoking, who instigated, who didn't instigate. I mean, it's all there. It's on freaking tape. And you could practically see the smoke coming out of Trump's ears. Coming right out of Trump's ears. So anyway, I teased the poll question. I apologize. I'm going to get to it. I promise. More with your calls. Don't touch that dial. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, my friends. So, with all of this happening now in the Middle East, and there's no question it is absolutely historic, President Trump now has deployed hundreds and hundreds of National Guard troops to Chicago, and there are now National Guard troops in Portland. So he's moving ahead on all fronts, saying that Antifa in particular is out of control. They are a public menace and a public threat. And he says now they're going to be given a mandate to smash Antifa, to arrest them, to dismantle them, and to remove them. Now, my question to you, it is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Who is more dangerous? Which group do you think is more dangerous? A, Antifa, B, Hamas. We saw pro-Hamas thugs, just a couple nights ago here in Boston, assault police officers, send several of them to the hospital with broken bones, smash cruisers, really turned downtown Boston into a semi-war zone. So, and they're very active on college campuses, targeting Jewish students, Jewish professors, taking over buildings. So we see the power of Hamas. On the other hand, we look at what Antifa is doing in Portland, Chicago, New York, Seattle, L.A. There's no question they are a domestic terrorist threat. So, who do you think is more dangerous? Antifa, A, Hamas, B. If I'm living in Israel or if I'm living in the Middle East, to me it's Hamas. If I'm living here in the United States, as I do obviously, I'd have to probably go with Antifa. But this is not going to be easy. They're both very dangerous. So I want to hear from you, Kuhner Country. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn is in national ER. You can also vote via X. And yes, the Kuhner man, I was active again on X. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report. Kuhner. Colin in Andover. Thanks for holding, Colin, and welcome.
Yeah, good morning, Jeff. First-time caller.
Welcome, Colin.
Thank you. First of all, the Nobel Peace Prize, Trump should have got it back in 2018 for the Abraham Accords, but I'll let that go. But I was watching the news media, the mainstream left-wing news media last night. Certainly they were caught off guard. I checked back in this morning because I wanted to see if there would be recognition and acknowledgement and praise for President Trump. By the time I got done watching these programs, I was convinced we had a new president, Jeff. President Abraham Accord, because there was hardly any recognition of Donald Trump by name. And now I'm curious, because you know more about this than I do, how the left-wing and mainstream media will cover this or couch it and give the credit where the credit is due. And now I'm starting to see that it's not credit to President Trump by name, but more of this, using the Abraham Accords as the reason. And granted, President Trump put the Abraham Accords in. And I just want to put you on notice and see if, as things unfold, you keep an eye out and get the left-wing talking points. I think that's something that you might want to keep an eye on. That's all I really want.
No, Colin, look, you're right. You're completely right. They're going to do everything in their power to deny giving Trump the credit. Here's their problem, Colin. The whole world is going to credit him. And the American people are going to credit him because he's the person who deserves the credit. When the Israelis are telling you, and the Palestinians are telling you, and the Arabs are telling you, and the Europeans are telling you, literally, I mean, everybody is telling you, he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize, then the liberal media is going to look again like a bunch of liars. It's just going to discredit and marginalize them even more. You see, if they had half a brain, which they don't, but if they had half a brain, Colin, well, concede what you have to concede. But if you're now going to be at war with reality again, in other words, the sky is blue. No, it's not. Well, the sky is blue. No, it's not. It's purple. It's purple. It's purple. No one's going to take you seriously anymore. And that's their problem. They're so consumed with Trump derangement syndrome. Really, it's a term that's overused, but think about it. They're deranged. It's a mental disorder. Well, somebody when you're dealing with someone, with all due respect to people who are battling mental health issues, but if you're dealing with someone who's schizophrenic or someone who's, seriously deranged, unhinged, you don't take that person seriously after a while. Whatever they tell you, you go, well, yeah, it's just not right in the head. It may even be true. And you're like, it's just not right in the head. That's what's happening to them now. So Hamas is imploding. Antifa now is about to implode. The Democratic Party is imploding with the shutdown and their ridiculous position that we have to shut the government down to give free health care, i.e. taxpayer-funded health care, to illegal aliens. And the media is imploding right in front of our eyes. Colin, look, I'm not bragging. I'm just trying to tell you. I have a much bigger audience than either CNN or MSNBC. I'm talking streaming. We have a lot of people who listen to us around the country, even frankly around the world. We even have listeners in Israel. We have listeners in Egypt. We have listeners in England. We have listeners in Finland. I'm telling you, there's like 3 towns. They keep saying, Jeff, I don't know what the hell it is with these 3 towns, but you got a cluster of listeners there. Finland, apparently near the Russian border. So anyway, I don't know why. I don't know how. I'm just saying nobody is watching CNN. Nobody's watching MSNBC. Nobody takes them seriously except these radical Marxist far left, like the Bills in Sudbury, the radical far left Democrats. I mean, I'm talking about left-wing lunatics and kooks. So it's like they're just preaching to the choir. It's like the crazies are talking to the crazies. And that's why we're becoming an 80-20 nation. And Trump is carving out that 80%. And I know I've said this before, Colin, but I'm telling you, you can see it, you can feel it. It's like FDR. When FDR was putting together this massive political coalition, this fundamental realignment, and the Republicans were sent into the political wilderness for over 20 years, a generation. Trump is starting to do that. And this is a big piece. So, Colin, thank you very much for that call. Very smart, very perceptive call. Agree, disagree. Dane in the Freedom State, Florida. Thanks for holding, Dane, and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. First, I want to give a quick quote here. Ecclesiastes 3:8. A time for war and a time for peace. And guess what? It's a time for peace now. Now, to answer your question, who's more dangerous, Hamas or Antifa? In my answer is with you, Antifa, and I'll tell you why. Abraham Lincoln, I think, paraphrased, we are not going to be defeated by an enemy abroad, but an enemy within. And this is why Antifa is so dangerous. They sit in our country here amongst us, okay? Look what they're doing. Look what they're being endorsed by the Democrats, the deep state. They are such a danger to us, okay? Hamas sits over in the Middle East. And guess what? President Trump achieved peace over there, okay? 8 down, and I say 2 more to go. And the 2 more to go for me is, okay, Ukraine, Russia. And then the 10th, and the most important, is the United States of America. Bringing peace within the United States of America is the most important thing we can do. Because right now we have an enemy within Antifa and these dangerous, hateful people. Now the Palestinians got their own state. They can actually go back to Palestine and live a free, have their own state. You don't have to live here anymore. You don't like it. Okay, Dearborn, Michigan, the rest all of them. You don't have to hate us anymore.
Dane. Oh my God, you're on fire. And I love your analogy. Let's win the Civil War here. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, a couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Please, everybody now in Kuhner country, I'll continue to take calls. Obviously, this is an historic day. By the way, this just broke about maybe 3 minutes ago. The ceasefire, the historic ceasefire, has now been officially signed by both Hamas and Israel. So they have ironed out whatever few details were remaining. It has now been inked. It has now been signed. Hamas is now committed to it. Israel is now committed to it. So the first phase of Trump's 20-point peace plan will now be implemented. The hostages will be coming home most likely by Monday. Now, many Palestinian prisoners are going to be released. As I said, that was a very tough, bitter pill for Israel to swallow, but the government in Israel approved it. They signed off on it. So Hamas will claim a victory as well. They got some of their people out of prison, and the Israeli military will withdraw to an agreed upon line. And that is the first withdrawal of several withdrawals, as long as they continue to dismantle and have Hamas give up their weapons. So this is going to take a while. It's a 3-phase plan. But in the end, the final goal will be an independent Palestinian state, militarily guaranteed by the Arab powers and by the Muslim countries of the world, with them providing most of the peacekeepers. It will be a demilitarized Palestinian state, but still the Arabs will guarantee its protection, plus billions and billions and billions of dollars pledged for the rebuilding and reconstruction of Gaza, and of course the investment into the West Bank. So the Palestinians will get an independent state if they follow through. Israel's borders and sovereignty will be recognized by the Palestinians. The only catch, Hamas will have no role whatsoever in the governance of this new independent Palestine. They must be thoroughly disbanded and completely and utterly disarmed. They will be given amnesty. All of their leaders, even the architects of October 7, will be given a complete blanket amnesty. They can live in Gaza, or they can leave Gaza to another Muslim or Arab country, and those countries will take them in. So these are the parameters of the deal. Now, there will be, this is down the road, a interim or transitional government, which will not consist of Hamas, a committee that will govern Palestine, and above it will be a board of peace chaired by President Trump. Former Prime Minister Tony Blair will also be a member of that board. So what that means is Trump will guarantee that America will put its weight behind Israel, and that America will also guarantee that there is a lot of investment being poured into Gaza and into the new Palestinian state. So we're now looking at the Arab world, the Muslim world, the Middle East, the European Union, the United States coming together to forge an independent Palestinian state living in peaceful coexistence side by side with an independent Israel in its current borders. And Hamas must now disband, dissolve, and disarm. So we will see if they get to the finish line, but this is now the peace plan, and the first phase has now been agreed to and signed by both Hamas and Israel. Now, as all of this is going on, Trump had a very important Antifa meeting. And as I said, Pam Bondi was there right beside him. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller, the Deputy Chief of Staff. And it was riveting. It was powerful. Honestly, it was one of the most incredible events I've ever seen. Independent journalists, social media influencers, YouTubers who have been covering Antifa on the ground live shared their horrible, horrific stories. How they have been beaten by Antifa, attacked by Antifa, mugged by Antifa, how they have witnessed Antifa attack police officers, attack federal buildings, how they have engaged in acts of terror after acts of terror, and oftentimes with the full complicity and collaboration, especially in Portland, of the local police. Some of them literally pumping their fists in the air as conservative journalists were being beaten to a pulp with batons, clubs, baseball bats by Antifa thugs. Not only was Antifa not arrested, they were literally being cheered on by certain police officers tied to the mayor in Portland. Now, listen to President Trump. He heard him. They gave him evidence, raw video footage. They pleaded to Pam Bondi, saying you need to start arresting Antifa. You've got to take away their leadership. You've got to crack down on them. You need to uphold the rule of law because they are out of control. They are domestic terrorists, and they're growing like a cancer. Listen now to President Trump. Roll cut 1, Mike.
It should be clear to all Americans that we have a very serious left-wing terror threat in our country. Radicals associated with the domestic terror group Antifa that you've heard a lot about lately, and I've heard a lot about them for 10 years. And other far-left extremists have been carrying out a campaign of violence against ICE agents and other officials charged with enforcing federal law.
So he's now saying we got a domestic terror threat. They're engaging in a campaign against ICE agents and law enforcement, which have to enforce federal immigration law, i.e., it's an insurrection. They are literally now obstructing federal law enforcement and defying federal immigration law and federal authority. So the question now is, what's President Trump and his Department of Justice and Homeland Security Department, what are they going to do? Roll cut 1-8. Mike.
In Chicago, anarchists have surveilled at least 4 local ICE facilities and posted diagrams of the buildings online, meaning nothing but bad, accompanied by photos of specific ICE agents that they're targeting, one in particular who's a top person and a great patriot. In July, approximately a dozen Antifa-aligned militants stormed the ICE facility in Texas and then lured officers out of the building before firing dozens of rounds at police. They were crazy, frankly, shooting one Texas officer in the neck. And in Portland, Oregon, Antifa thugs have repeatedly attacked our officers and laid siege to federal property in an attempt to violently stop the execution of federal law. Everything we're doing is very lawful. What they're doing is not lawful.
Hey, well, it's beyond not lawful. It's criminal. I mean, this is terrorism. They're ambushing ICE agents. They're shooting them in the neck. They're, laying siege to ICE buildings and ICE detention centers. And these mayors, sanctuary state governors, and sanctuary city mayors have ordered their police departments to do nothing. And they're allowing these thugs and these criminals and these terrorists to just run wild. So the question now is, Mr. President, what are you going to do about it? What is your DOJ, Pam Bondi, what is she going to do? And what is the DHS under Kristi Noem? What are you going to do? Roll cut 1B. Mike.
In addition, 2 weeks ago, radical left terrorists in Dallas conducted a sniper attack on a local ICE facility, killing 2 people and leaving behind a note that read, "Hopefully this will give ICE agents some real terror." That's bad. This attack came the very same month that Charlie Kirk was assassinated by a far-left extremist who inscribed the words, "Hey, fascist, catch," meaning catch the bullet, onto the bullet shelf itself. The epidemic of left-wing violence and Antifa-inspired terror has been escalating for nearly a decade.
Okay, I'm with you. You had me at hello. I'm with you. It's like he's building up this case, and I'm like, amen, brother. Amen, brother. Amen, brother. And now it's culminated to this point. But again, what is Pam Bondi? What is Kristi Noem? What are you going to do? That's the $64,000 question. Roll cut 1C. Mike.
At universities, Antifa has organized riotous mobs to attack campus speakers. I see it all the time. And these are agitators, anarchists, and they're paid. And you'll find that out. You'll be finding it out very soon. You should see what we have on these people. These are bad people. These are people that want to destroy our country. We're not going to let it happen.
Okay, so now the reporters are getting nervous now. Because now he's saying 2 things. He's saying we're going to track their sources of funding, because many of these and we've told you what it is. It's about $500 a day. Okay? And by the way, they pay for your meals, they pay for all your expenses, and they don't declare any of this. So that's $500 cash money. And, you protest 5-6 days a week like many of them do. That's $2,500. That's $3,000 a week. I mean, that's some good cash. So that's how they're recruiting these people. Now, so they're going to track down their sources of money. They know where it's going to lead to. It's going to lead to some of the biggest donors of the Democratic Party, George Soros being sugar daddy number 1. But there are others. And he says we're not going to let it happen. Now the reporters are looking at each other like, oh no. Roll cut 2, Mike.
They've used armed gangs to assault local police in cities nationwide, and they've attacked journalists reporting on their crimes. So the journalists that report on their crimes, don't worry, you're very safe. I hope that's not going to turn you around, but they have been very threatening to people, but we're going to be very threatening to them, far more threatening to them than they ever were with us, and that includes the people that fund them. Probably some of the people I know, some of the people I dine with, but if they do, they're in deep trouble.
So now what he's saying is we're going to start arresting them. And you can see Pam Bondi's face starts to get wrinkles. Kristi Noem is looking at Trump like, okay, I got the message. So basically now Trump is telling this right in the face of his attorney general and right in the face of his head of Homeland Security, saying, I want the money, I want their donors, and they're not going to, their days of threatening, beating people, attacking people, shooting people, I want them off the street. Do you understand? I want arrests, and I want mass arrests, and I want no excuses. So, roll cut, now, to hit you over the head. If I'm not being clear enough, let me now be really clear. Roll cut 2A, Mike.
So we're going to be looking very strongly at the people that are funding these operations. When you see the signs, and they're all made out of a beautiful paper, beautiful, nice, stiff, very expensive paper with beautiful wood handles, all the same color. They come from very expensive printing machines. These are not people that write out their signs in a basement that believe in something. These are paid anarchists.
Oh, there's no question. The money, do you know what it is to buy all these bricks and then get a truck and then drive this truck around at strategic locations exactly where they need to be to throw rocks or bricks at police in order to occupy and take over certain neighborhoods? Like, you think that's just a couple of punks in their basement? To have all this equipment dressed in black with the padding and the knee pads, the elbow pads, the masks, so they can, in case they use tear gas, they can breathe with their masks. Well, you think that's just a couple of punks in the basement? And he's right. The signs are beautiful. They're professionally well made. This is not a couple of 19-year-old college kids, hey, let's make some trouble. This is a well-funded, well-organized, well-financed, well-oiled machine. It's premeditated. It's coordinated. And to me, I think there's no question. This is coming straight from the highest echelons of the Democratic Party. So listen now to Trump. He meets with, remember I talked about him maybe a couple days ago, Nick Sortor. He's a journalist, one of these independent journalists, who was assaulted when he covered an Antifa riot over the weekend. He was literally beaten, and then he was arrested by the police in Portland. He's the victim of Antifa, and they arrested him. He then gives President Trump a burned flag. Antifa was burning flags. And Sortor, being a patriot, said he found it so disgusting and revolting, he tried to rescue some of the flags. He rescued one of them. He said, Mr. President, I want to give this to you. Roll cut 3, Mike.
You mentioned that flag. So remember, you put out a truth right after
That's right. I saw that.
Took this flag from that man that was burning it in the street.
Do you know who he is?
Oh, yeah, I know exactly who it is.
So why don't you give it to Pam? Give it to the Attorney General, and let's start prosecutions.
Yeah. I actually have a second flag that he tried to burn as well. So I have 2 of them from the same guy.
You also saw what happened when that flag started burning. Everyone went crazy. And that's when it started, when they started burning the flag. So thank you. If you could give the information, it would be great.
Absolutely.
And at least that horrible night made you famous.
I got a text from the President of the United States, so I appreciate that.
Did you notice? Give it to Pam. Pam didn't say, give it to me. Did you notice that? No, give it to Pam, and you're going to arrest this guy. Do you understand? Again, like you say, push, come on now, let's go, do your freaking job. Now, listen now to this. He said, we're not just going to crack some heads. We're not just going to start arresting these low-level Antifa thugs and terrorists. Okay, we're not going to start, by the dozens and dozens. We're going to start putting them in jail. But he said, no. I want to go after the ringleaders. And I want to go after these insurrectionist mayors and governors. Listen now to this. Roll cut 4, Mike.
The mayor of Chicago and the governor of Illinois should be jailed. Have you asked the Justice Department to look at possible charges?
No, I've seen the law. And when you have a group of people where the police call off the safety for ICE officials, I've understood that, and I've read it today in numerous journals, that that's illegal. What they did is I guess it was ICE, Christie, right? They were under threat, and the police were helping beautifully, and it was fine. And then all of a sudden, a woman was on the line saying, everybody, move back, get out. And they were given an order by the second person in the police department, and the governor knew about it, the mayor knew about it. I understand that's a criminal offense.
Bingo. That's what I said. That's what I said. That's what I've been saying for God knows how many days now. Now, they can't get out of this. Remember, these Antifa terrorists were following ICE on a routine patrol as they're about to conduct raids against Tren de Aragua. Okay, one of the most dangerous, violent gangs in the world. They 10 vehicles. They boxed in the ICE cars, the ICE vehicles, 10 of them. And then they began to ram them. And one of them, a woman, came out with a semi-automatic rifle. Like, in other words, I'm going to shoot up one of these ICE cars. I'm going to kill some people inside. ICE agents at that point had no choice but to fire defensive shots to defend themselves. So shots now, basically downtown Chicago is a freaking war zone. And it's like boom, 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 boom. Now, they injured her, non-life threatening. She's got to go to the hospital. But now you've got tear gas, you've got bedlam, you've got Antifa, and up these mother effers. F up these mother effers. Meaning, let's pull them out of their vehicles and tear them limb from limb. Let's beat them up. Let's assault them. It's a riot now. ICE doesn't want to start shooting into the crowd. It's going to be a massacre. They start saying, we need local police. Where's the backup? Where's the Chicago Police Department? You know where the Chicago Police Department was? Here is the 911 dispatcher. From the police chief telling the police, stand down. Roll cut 4A, Mike.
And again, per the chief of patrol, we have all the units that per 999, chief of patrol said all units clear out from there. We're not sending anybody over to that location. All right, and 999, just to confirm, at 39th Place in Kedzie, they were saying that they were being surrounded by that large crowd, and they were requesting the police were not sending. I'm waving off all the cars heading to 39th Place in Kedzie.
Again, those are the orders we're being given.
Those are the orders we're being given. Leave. Abandon them. 617-266-6868. Okay, I know I've played quite a few cuts. Please bear with me because this is very molto importante. Basically, you can tell yesterday that was the decisive meeting. Yes, Trump designated Antifa as a terrorist organization, but now they're going to implement Trump's plan just the way they've signed it. By the way, again, it's been confirmed. Hamas and Israel have now signed the ceasefire accord. They're going to start to implement Trump's peace plan in the Middle East, in Gaza, and the Israeli hostages will be coming home by Monday. So a huge victory for the region, for Israel, for the United States, and especially for Trump. Okay, but let that go just for a second. So you've got Trump now, and remember, you've got Kristi Noem, you've got Pam Bondi right on his left, and you've got all these independent journalists confirming what a bunch of terrorist thugs and the damage that Antifa has been doing to their neighborhoods, to ICE agents, to ICE buildings, to themselves who've covered these Antifa riots and these Antifa so-called protests. So now you've got Kristi Noem. Listen to this. She basically forces Pam Bondi's hands, saying, I agree with you, Mr. President. They've got to be prosecuted. Not just Antifa and their leadership, but Brandon Johnson and Pritzker. Like, in other words, these mayors, these insurrectionist mayors and governors, they've got to be put in handcuffs. Like, enough of this pussyfooting around. Roll cut 9. Mike.
We're seeing that kind of pattern happen with local law enforcement and state law enforcement, not just in Illinois, but also out in Oregon, too. In fact, in Portland, I was there yesterday, but some of the ICE officers were telling me that as they drove by the rioters that were saying, kill ICE agents, Molotov cocktails, melt ICE, that the Portland police were cheering them on and had their fists in the air cheering on the rioters that were threatening their lives. So in Chicago, we had a 10-car caravan trail our ICE officials and pin them down. And those ICE officials, to get out of their vehicles, a woman tried to ram them and run them over, and shots were fired to get them to safety. So it's happening on a regular basis, and any elected official that allows this to happen and gives cover to those kind of individuals who are perpetuating murder should absolutely be prosecuted, in my opinion.
Now, both Trump and Noam, they basically now twisted Pam Bondi's arm. Verbally. They both look to her. Like, okay, Pam. Like, okay. And here's what Pam Bondi said. They pushed, but they finally got her to say it. Roll cut 10. Mike.
We are around this country fighting against this domestic terrorism. We had Apple and Google take down the ICE block apps. Hope they continue to comply with that. It's threatening the safety of our federal law enforcement officers. We're not going to stop at just arresting the violent criminals we can see in the streets. Fighting crime is more than just getting the bad guy off the streets. It's breaking down the organization brick by brick. Just like we did with cartels, we're going to take the same approach, President Trump, with Antifa. Destroy the entire organization from top to bottom. We're going to take them apart. Thanks to your bold leadership and the designation of Antifa as a terrorist organization, which is exactly what they are, Americans will no longer tolerate their unhinged violence.
Okay. Oh my God, it took you forever. Okay. Start mass arrests and go after Pritzker, Golden Corral, and go after that. I mean, he's a lunatic. That lunatic mayor, Bolshevik Brandon. Okay, Brandon Johnson, that crazy mayor of Chicago. So they now know they're in big trouble. Trump has now thrown down the gauntlet. Kristi Noem has thrown down the gauntlet. Pam Bondi, as you could tell in that Pam Bondi way, come on. But there it is. She's on board now. So listen to Pritzker's response. Here it is. Here's Golden Corral. They hauled him away from the buffet table, put a microphone in front of him. He licked his lips, swallowed the fried chicken, and then said, roll cut 11. Mike.
You know as well as I do, the President of the United States in the last 24 hours called for you to be imprisoned. I want to give you an opportunity. We've seen your reaction on social media, but I want to hear what you have to say back to the President of the United States.
Well, let's start with the idea that this is a convicted felon. I mean, think about that, who is threatening to jail me. I got to say, this guy's unhinged. He's insecure. He's a wannabe dictator. And there's one thing I really want to say to Donald Trump. If you come for my people, you come through me. So come and get me.
Now, as he's saying this, I'm sorry, I have to say it. It's actually funny because he's saying this, come through, like Mr. Tough Guy. But he's staring blankly into the camera. And I'm sorry, but it's just, his double chin is just hanging. I mean, it's just hanging. You know what I mean? Like he's got like a turtle in his mouth or something. Like it's just freaking hanging. It's just like, okay, Golden Corral. By the way, you know where to arrest them. All right, let's throw this log on the fire. Trump says they should be arrested. Kristi Noem says they should be arrested. Pam Bondi, boy, oh boy, you had to twist her arm. But yes, even she says now they should be arrested. Should Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, should Illinois Governor Bixter, J.B. Pritzker, should they be arrested for obstructing justice and defying federal law and defying federal authority? And will they be arrested? Both should they be, and do you think Pam Bondi has what it takes, especially now that she's under orders? Will she put these two men, or one of the two, either Johnson or Golden Corral, in handcuffs? I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. Maria in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Maria, and welcome.
Hi, good morning, Jeff. Both things. First, the Nobel Peace Prize. The left is never going to accept it, even if the entire world says that Donald Trump should get it, because they're going to say it was a diminishment to Barack Obama. Now the prize means nothing. The other thing about Antifa, Marty Walsh started this 10 years ago when he went on TV and literally called for Antifa to march on the Boston Common during that free speech rally that included everybody of each side of the political space. But if we're going to go after Antifa here, they're in the UK also. Tommy Robinson is dealing with the Middle East and Antifa, the same as we are. So what are we going to do if we go after them here? Because they're not just domestic. We have to go after. They have to be gone after in both places, or our guys are going to go over there, and then they're going to come back here when we're not paying attention.
Well, Maria, look, I don't want to use up time now. I'm going to get into it much deeper, I promise, because this story is not going anywhere. But I'll tell you, one of the biggest sources of funding of Antifa is a left-wing billionaire. He's an American, made his money in Chicago, but now lives literally in China, in Shanghai. And it's Neville Roy Singman. You can look it up. Singhman. He is a rabid leftist. He is married to a woman who is the co-founder of Code Pink. He is swimming, literally swimming in Chinese money. He is a front for the Chinese Communist Party. And every organization that has been caught doing insurrectionary activities, terroristic activities, left-wing terrorism in the United States has been funded by Singman, who's really the middleman for the Chinese Communist Party. So to, answer your question, yes, Antifa is active in Canada. They're active in Great Britain. They're active in other countries in the West, but they really are the cat's paw. They are the proxy of the communist Chinese. And if you notice, Antifa loves communist China. Code Pink loves communist China. They don't condemn China's human rights abuses or their massacre of the Uyghurs and the genocide that they're committing there. Code Pink will never, ever criticize communist China because they're taking literally $20 million through Singman from communist China. So your point is completely right. If you're going to have a war on terrorism and a war on Antifa, this is tentacles that reach beyond the United States. And their motherland is, yes, they're funded by George Soros. Yes, they're funded by Reid Hoffman. Yes, they're funded by Bill Gates. Yes, they're funded by Klaus Schwab. Yes, they're tied to the World Economic Forum. There's no question. Very powerful socialist billionaires are pumping money into Antifa. But their primary source of funding and their ideological inspiration, their political inspiration, is communist China. And so when they go after the donors and the funders, this is going to lead right back to Beijing. And then we're going to realize that Beijing has been deliberately funding the internal subversion and sabotage of the United States. They're the ones who are trying to destroy us from within. Maria, final word to you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. But if we're going to go that route, then we have to go after our own politicians. I just spoke to Scott Brown up here in New Hampshire, and he still today says that China is our friend. So how do we go after China when we have idiots that are in our own government that say that they're on our side?
Maria, if you ever see Scott Brown, I call him the model. That's my nickname for him. Tell him Jeff Kuhner says hello. He hates me. He can't stand my guts because I keep calling him out for the phony and the fraud that he is. But Maria, if you ever see the model again, tell him, really, say, hey, the Kuhner man says hello. Maria, you're completely right, and thank you very much for that call. No, the Chinese Communist Party, look, it's an open secret. They have bought the Democrats, lock, stock, and barrel, and they have bought at least half of the Republicans. They have bought up much of the Republican establishment. And that's why nobody calls them out. Almost everything that is happening in our country, literally, almost everything, you can lay at the feet of Communist China in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's outsourcing of jobs, outsourcing of our wealth, the most powerful lobby pushing for open borders, whether it's stealing our intellectual technology, intellectual property rights, spying on our universities. I could go on and on. Funding these, by the way, much of the funding, some of it is coming from Qatar and Saudi Arabia. You know, these anti-Semitic eruptions, these riots on campuses. The bulk of the money is coming from China. Antifa, the bulk of the money is coming from China. So, and I could go on and on. So there's no question. Our number one foreign enemy, it's not even close, is Communist China. And most of our politicians are on the take, and they're taking Beijing's money. And he who pays the piper calls the tune. Bruce, and that's why they keep saying they're not an enemy, they're a friend, or what they'll say is they're an adversary, like a competitor. Like that's all they are. They're just a competitor. You know, like it's Canada and the United States and we're competing over lumber or dairy or something. No, they're not a competitor. They're not even an adversary. They're a mortal enemy. Bruce in the Freedom State, Florida. Thanks for holding, Bruce, and welcome.
Jeff, you're doing a great job today.
Thank you, Bruce.
The first thing I wanted to point out is that this is, in my mind, an Andrew Jackson moment, President Andrew Jackson moment for President Trump, in that the nullification crisis of 1832 is an echo right now, in that the President of the United States declared war and threatened to hang his own vice president, who was in favor of nullification of a federal law. Now, immigration is obviously...
Bruce, just 1 second. You're right, but just for the audience, because they may say, what, 1832? In 30 seconds, his vice president was South Carolina Senator John C. Calhoun. By the way, a brilliant man. Not a nice man, but a brilliant man. South Carolina nullified the federal tariff. There was a huge federal tariff that most of the country supported. South Carolina, a slave state. They were a free trade state for cotton, for agriculture and for cotton. And they said, no, we reject the federal tariff. We are going to nullify it. It will not apply in our state. And John C. Calhoun, who was then Andrew Jackson's vice president, said, I side with South Carolina. I side with nullification. And Andrew Jackson said, you're a traitor. And you know what we do with traitors in this country? We hang them. And Jackson smashed South Carolina. He said, no, you're not going to nullify us. Please, Bruce, pick up where you left off.
The parallel is that although this was about a tariff issue, right now immigration is the issue.
And Mike, you couldn't give him an extra 10 seconds and get some flow into his point? Okay, Bruce, please hang on. Let's go right back to Bruce in Florida. Bruce, I love that analogy. I love that parallel that you're making. You are so right. This is so reminiscent of the 1832 nullification crisis, except then it was about the tariff. Now it's about immigration and illegal aliens. Bruce, please pick up where you left off.
Basic fundamental point is that these mayors and governors in Chicago and in Illinois have absolutely no right to declare themselves sanctuary cities and sanctuary states, because immigration is a federal function to be enforced by the president and his attorney general. And in the same spirit as Andrew Jackson, who threatened to go down there and hang John C. Calhoun, I think that this is the time that calls for a lion of a leader like Trump to emulate Andrew Jackson. And I'm tired of all these reporters that you're referring to and these politicians who are nothing more than bundles of resentment and envy, just terrible human beings. They hate the country. We've seen that. They hate us, and all of these events should reinforce that in our own minds. They're out to kill us, and that's how we should react to them. And I'd like to say it's what's going on right now discombobulates them, as you were pointing out earlier, because just as Bukele in El Salvador showed that crime is not an intractable problem. The most dangerous city in the Western Hemisphere, the most dangerous country, can be made safe by effective leadership. And in the same way, they'll never give credit to Ronald Reagan for winning the Cold War and reviving the economy. They will never give credit to Trump if he brings peace to the Middle East. That's just what we have to accept.
Oh, you're dead on. Bruce, on absolutely every single point. Bruce, let me ask you before you go, do you think now that Trump has basically thrown down the gauntlet, Kristi Noem says she's with him, Pam Bondi reluctantly, but to her credit, she says yes, will Brandon Johnson be arrested or will Pritzker be arrested? In other words, they smashed the nullification crisis in 1832. They broke it. Is Trump going to break them as well? Are we going to see some arrests?
From your mouth to God's ears, as the Jewish people say. And if Pam Bondi doesn't do it, well, she can be fired and replaced.
Amen. Bruce, amen. Bruce, thank you very much for that call. Fred in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding, Fred, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Fred.
And this whole thing with Antifa, and then the Palestine protesters, they're one and the same. I mean, it's the same organization, it's the same people. They just put on a different hat, but it's all come from the same source. You hit the nail on the head. It's these internationalists, globalists, who are funding a lot of this nonsense to overthrow this country. Basically, their end game is to overthrow the United States and, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, all of it. They want to take it all down, put their own little show in place. And to call them out on it, and you mentioned China being behind it. I think we should send a loud and clear message to all of China, not just the Communist Party in China, but to all the people in China. You exist because we saved your butt in World War II against the Japanese. You exist today because of us. And this is how you repay us. And if the people in China understand that, the people, not the government, the people, I think there'd be a hell of a lot of rioting taking place on their part. So what are you doing? They're our allies. It could be our allies. It could be our best friends and trading partners. And this is what we're doing to them. This is what you, the Communist Party, are doing to them. And I think that would make the Tiananmen Square look like a Sunday picnic compared to what they've been doing.
Oh, I love it. Fred, I love it. Look, I think it's a great way to end the show. Really, brilliant. Fred, I'm telling you, absolutely brilliant. Look, think about it. If you subvert America from within and overthrow our system, ultimately, which power in the world benefits? China, right? They're the only country that can match us potentially. So that's exactly why they're funding our destruction from within. And the Chinese communist regime is not popular at home. And why don't we appeal to the Chinese people, nationalism, patriotism, and say, look, we saved your bacon in World War II. You'd all be speaking Japanese if it wasn't for us. And this is how your leadership pays us back? No. Instead of overthrowing us, why don't you, the Chinese people, overthrow your communist masters?